Yeah, so the Tavistock Gender Identity Clinic was founded in 1989 to deal with the growing number of young people that were presenting as gender distress. And originally, it was overwhelmingly males that were presenting with gender dysphoria. And in the last 10 years or so, it has completely transformed, where it is thousands of young females in particular that are presenting with gender dysphoria and wanting to transition to males. And so the Gender Identity Clinic has been working with a particular model that has been controversial over the last 10 years, and that is the affirmation model, which is essentially that you affirm what the child says. If they say that they are born in the wrong body, that they may be of opposite sex to the one that they are born, then you affirm their gender that they present with. And this has been controversial because many people say, well, a child doesn't necessarily know what they're talking about, that you need to ask questions. There may be many other issues involved, whether that's issues related to autism or child abuse or trauma that could be causing that child to have such a strong disassociation with their body. And so the CAS review looked into the way in which young people are being treated, whether that's hormones, puberty blockers, and so on, and found that the Tavistock Clinic, the Gender Identity Service, was effectively inadequate, and they actively said that it was not safeguarding children.
And people will find it extraordinary that this was allowed to continue for so long in the first place, because it has been plagued by lots of controversies. I believe Kira Bell had her gender changed at the Tavistock Clinic. She then came to detransition, saying, how dare you let me do this? I was just a child. I didn't know what I was talking about. Now you sort of ruined my life. Lots of cases like that have come out. How was this allowed to continue? Why didn't somebody put a stop to it earlier?
I think that's a really important question. I think there's so many different reasons for that. I think undoubtedly some people have just been wanting to deal with what is a difficult, sensitive and confusing experience for many young children. But there has been a cultural problem of a sensitivity when discussing this issue, where people are fearful of being called transphobic or deemed bigoted if they ask questions. And there has indeed been many whistleblowers that have come out of the Gender Identity Tavistock Clinic and have found that their careers have been pushed to the side, they've been ostracised when they try and blow the whistle on some of these things. And as you rightfully mentioned, the Kira Bell case, for most people, this is a child. You know, she was 16 when she was given fundamentally life-altering drugs. I mean, they have huge implications, whether that's potential infertility, changes in sexual development, and oftentimes, for example, if you're a female, you may grow a beard and change your voice, and some of those changes are irreversible. And how can a child, for many people, come to those kinds of transformational decisions without having really tough questions asked of them?
We don't even let under 18s get tattoos, do we? I mean, it's just, it beggars belief. Do you think there's a wider discussion that's not being had yet about, you mentioned earlier about the number of women now coming forward. I think a third of the cases used to be female, and now it's, you know, the vast majority. Is there a wider discussion we're not having about what is actually triggering this sort of community hysteria?
I think that may well be the case. I mean, many people, psychologists, child psychologists, therapists, want to ask those kinds of questions, and hopefully with this situation that has emerged, it is opening the space for those difficult questions to be had. But it's on top of that, we have the wider discussion as well about gender self-identification. And you mentioned Scotland. Some people have argued that the Scottish government haven't actually commented very much so on this particular incident when it comes to the Tavistock. And there are big questions around whether or not safeguarding is going to be protected if people can merely self-identify as a different gender and have access to the same rights, spaces and availability services if they hadn't done that. So I do think that those questions need to be asked, and we need to have way more safeguards in place to ensure that people are protected.